We have been looking at this issue for a long time, we being CCI and others. They're, kind of following on the heels of watching the gun industry get a lot of legal protections, essentially legal immunity from Congress, many years back, not that many years back, but that was certainly precedent setting for corporations to be able to get some kinds of legal protection. So we actually been looking at this issue since like 2019, and there was even actually a little kind of baby attempt to sneak some liability protection into one of the COVID relief packages very early on for the fossil fuel industry, which just seems like a crazy thing, which it was, and luckily it didn't go anywhere. But it's been kind of, we've had our ears and eyes very open since that happened. And then, of course, when the administration changed a year and a half ago, then we kind of knew it was go time and we had to really start scrutinizing everything really carefully. So I wanted to go over a little bit of kind of how we were reading the tea leaves and what kind of led to this moment, which was last Mar or 2025 March. That was kind of the first time. It was actually the first time in the Wall Street Journal, or there was like really, really specific reporting that the oil industry was lobbying the administration for immunity. Of course, we know that the industry had given huge amounts of money to the president's campaign. And so assuming that they're cashing in on that check now. But so last March, they directly met with the president in the White House and his members of his cabinet asking for help to just put an end to all of these make polluter pays efforts, both the lawsuits that aim to hold oil and gas companies accountable, like the lawsuit that's been filed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts against Exxon, as well as the Superfund laws, which I know that you are all working hard to pass now. So then fast forward a little bit, we saw an executive order come out again last April, and that was basically directing Pam Bondi to take a look at these climate law. They keep referring to those climate laws and lawsuits, essentially trying to find ways for her, asking her for her recommendations on how to sort of dismantle them. In June of that year, there were 16 Republican attorneys general that wrote a letter also to Pam Bondi, and they specifically called out that gun manufacturer liability law, PLACA, as what they want for the oil and gas industry. So they were very specific in that letter. So of course we are, at this point we are paying close attention. And there were many other little moments over the course of that summer and just the months sort of leading up to it. There were some like attempts to defund the Washington, D.C.'s lawsuit because of how it's tied to federal appropriations. But in October, we start to see lobbying reports come out, and they're very clear that they are lobbying for this kind of legislation, for legal protections. And then fast forward to the beginning of this year, and this was really when it was sort of all systems go. The American Petroleum Institute, which is very much, the trade association for all the big oil majors, named getting rid of Superfund laws and climate lawsuits as like one of their top legislative priorities for this year. So game on. And if you go to the next slide, I can't remember if it's Sam or Celeste controlling this, but thank you. A month later, we see it was actually the bill wasn't out there yet, but actually it was like it was one of the Pam Bondi hearings, but interestingly, Representative Harriet Hageman out of Wyoming, who self-describes as the Wicked Witch of the West, apparently, that is her own doing, but she basically said she's working on a bill and it's going to tackle, all these accountability efforts. So we were like, all right, it's coming, it's coming. And meanwhile, we had been working with a ton of other organizations like the ones in the slide that Celeste showed earlier to really start preparing for when we would eventually see this language. So we wanted to not be caught off guard. We wanted to be ready. And so we had started compiling different grassroots efforts across the country. We started working in a number of different states. So we were ready. So next slide, please. And then it happened in April, the Stop Climate Shakedowns Act of 2026, which is really a bold name. Next slide, please. And this is who is behind it. And this slide actually looks very different today than it even looked last week. There hasn't been much movement on who's sponsoring, with the exception of right now. There are quite a few new sponsors added to the House bill over the last week. So that is unfortunate to see, but it is sponsored in the Senate by Senator Cruz and the House by Representative Hageman. And if you go to the next slide, Think, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is the breakdown of what the bill does. It's actually a very simple bill, interestingly. It's not very long, but it's very broad. It's very wide sweeping. So, the first thing it does is it prohibits any new litigation against big oil for climate damages. So, right now, there's 11 attorneys general filing lawsuits. There's several dozen municipalities. There are tribal governments. So, this would make it so no new lawsuits, which is really devastating to think about, especially, of course, as we just face more and more extreme weather all of the time. And these are damages that are, of course, associated with climate, which is perpetuated by this industry. Like there is a responsible party here that should be held accountable to pay. Provision number two dismisses all the existing litigation. So it would just make all of these lawsuits go away. There's a little couple caveats there, depending on the legal claim. Some of these are, they're not necessarily going after damages associated with climate disasters. They might be going after lives, but essentially, this is a huge, huge blow to any accountability efforts. Then their code word for climate superfund bills are energy penalty laws, but that is what they're referring to very explicitly. So it would just void out any bills that are passed that will also make them pay for these damages. And then lastly, and this is a really bold statement and probably not constitutional, but they basically are just asserting federal authority over regulating greenhouse gas emissions, which is saying states can't do that. That's up to the federal government. So, not sure there's, you could speculate all day about why that was included in there, but this is the makeup of the bill. This is what it is aims to do. So it's very clear, short and to the point, and essentially providing that immunity to this industry. Next slide, please. So we don't think that this bill, in and of itself, will be the thing that moves its way through Congress. We think it is much more likely, just because that would be a really hard thing to do, even for the current makeup. We do think that it's more likely that the provisions within it will be snuck into other bills that are more likely to pass, because it's either a must-pass bill, like appropriations or the National Defense Authorization Act, or it's some kind of bipartisan bill like permitting reform or the surface transportation, these other kind of legislative vehicles that, they could kind of easily sneak something into that has much more widespread support just due to the substance of the bill. We are probably most concerned about reconciliation because a lot of these other bills, they still need 60 votes in the Senate, which is why we've been mostly targeting Senate Democrats. I mean, we're targeting House members too, but just to kind of really shore up those 60 votes. Or excuse me, that not having 60 votes. But reconciliation is concerning. It theoretically shouldn't have to pass or shouldn't be able to pass through reconciliation. But unfortunately, there is some precedent with the way that an AI moratorium bill was snuck in there. It was not eventually passed, but it did make its way through the parliamentarian. So reconciliation is concerning because it's a simple majority. And so, of course, they don't have to convince as many people. So even though we perceive this as a very radical bill, which I think it is, I mean, granting any kind of sweeping protection to a specific industry is very radical. But, we are concerned, of course, about what is the legislative vehicle that they will attach this to. So far, we haven't seen it attached to anything yet, and we hope that that is due in part to the massive amount of lobbying and pushback that is being done to oppose this bill. Next slide, please. I just want to also very quickly mention that this is not an effort that is specific to Congress. I mean, it is, and that this is a huge federal legislative bill, but this is also there's also state campaign. We have seen now 5 states enact a state version of a liability shield for the industry. And then there's a whole bunch of other attacks on public nuisance that would potentially incorporate big oil. But they're trying to do this basically at all levels of government. Really, at the end of the day, the biggest fear is facing a jury. That is what they don't want to do. That is the scariest thing for this industry. They've essentially come out and said that. And so, yeah, they're going to try, they have unlimited resources to try to do this. So they're definitely going to. So you'll see a lot of these bills look like Energy Freedom Act. There is some model legislation that was put out by an industry front group and unfortunately, copy pasted and then passed into law in 5 different states. So Utah, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Louisiana. So we think that those will come back to haunt us in more and more states next year. But for now, we're focused on the federal bills as we are leaving the legislative session. And I do want to kind of highlight the different efforts and also how the efforts in Massachusetts fit into this larger picture, because there is this kind of amazing patchwork across the country of states engaging in this issue. And the idea is that we want to make sure that people in the state, in any state, know about this, care about this, and then push back so our members of Congress are hearing about this, not just from people in DC, but actually their own constituents who are saying, hey, we're watching and we do not agree that you should give big oil any kind of immunity. So I want to just highlight this a little bit. If I had more graphic design abilities, we would make a pretty map, but here we are with a list. So there are active campaigns right now, meaning that there are organizers from different organizations, state-based organizations in California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Vermont. All these campaigns look a little bit different. And a huge, huge shout out to Sierra Club of Massachusetts, who are leading this campaign here. But this is being replicated other places. Here in Maine, there's a big postcard campaign happening. We did a big kind of sign-on letter, and that was actually mainly through our LCB component here. And so this is just like activity that is happening at the same time that activity will be happening in Massachusetts. We have, over the last 6 months, these other states where it says past, Washington, Oregon, Illinois, Connecticut, New Jersey, they have run campaigns. It's been really successful. We've had a ton of members on the record either doing videos or press releases or statements or other ways of basically saying absolutely not. And that's really like one of the things we really want to see, right? Is members of Congress on the record. And then we're also continuing to expand. So we're in conversations right now with Michigan, Rhode Island, and actually Hawaii, which I forgot to add there. So just so folks know like how this fits into this broader context. And what we're hearing from the Hill, from the people who are on the Hill, is how much pressure they're getting from in the state. And that is just the most validating thing to hear. And if you go to the next slide, yeah. So I just sorry for all the text, but, I just want to kind of summarize the kinds of actions that have been taken. So there is a lot that's been done. There's a lot that we could do because ultimately this threat is not going to go away because we are certainly looking at potentially a third reconciliation package. We are also worried about the lame duck session after the elections because that's what better incentive for them to pass it, knowing they might lose power. So, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the other groundwork that's been laid. So there have been a sign-on letter with 10 different governors. There is one that has like a bunch of different attorneys general and cities and counties that have filed lawsuits saying, hey, please preserve our lawsuits that we filed. Almost 400 organizations across the country, and then lots of different specific constituencies, which I think are just really, really compelling. There's an amazing letter from public health community and from Green Faith and their interfaith communities, and they're just all take kind of slightly different narratives, but they're just all make a really compelling story here. So we've also been doing in states, we did a national petition delivery, but a lot of states have also been doing in-state deliveries, sign-on letters. Congress has received so far over 11,000 calls, so we love to see that. And then there are other places that are passing resolutions, and so there's more and more. But I just want to, again, give kind of a taste of some of the different actions that folks are taking in different places.
Start grounding you a little bit in Massachusetts scale, what we're planning to do over here. So Sierra Club has an overall kind of toolkit for the summer of action. So this is one way we are going to kind of utilize some of the resources that overall National Sierra Club organizers made for summer of action for this particular campaign. So this graphic here is showing kind of our core arc, which there's going to be, a lot of other things happening around these three kind of key points. But you're here for the kickoff. Really glad to have you here for the welcome call to kind of orient and get this started as an effort on the state scale in Massachusetts. We already know coming up now in 18 days, we are going to be headed out to Spectacle Island on a ferry with Save the Harbor, Save the Bay. And we're going to be talking about this campaign out there and how we can build narrative to tell stories about why it matters to us to make sure that fossil fuel companies don't get immunity from all the harms they've been doing to our climate. And so how do we protect what we love? We're going to work on that on Spectacle Island. And I will drop that link in the chat in case anyone happens to be able to join out in Boston on, I think that's a Sunday, in the morning into early afternoon. And then moving into August, hopefully around the week of August 9th, we are going to be delivering letters to district offices of federal delegation. So this is kind of a key way that we're hoping many of you in the room might want to help organize visiting your federal representatives in district office. You might not even know where that is yet. I had fun looking up where Ayanna Presley's in district office was because we have a volunteer who might want to lead one in Boston, and maybe one of you wants to partner with him as an example. But I'm going to pass it over to Sam to get into a little bit more of what all fits within this larger kind of framework here, and what are some of the things we're hoping y'all might want to plug into.
Thank you so much, Celeste. And while we have these three key moments, so much of the work happens in between. And as Isla was talking about, this campaign can look different. Doesn't have to look like other states. And there's a lot of ways that you can help. Celeste is our senior organizer here at the chapter. I'm also here to support, and we have a great group of existing volunteers as well as staff members that are here to help you activate in this moment for for these things to protect what you love. I just said a lot of words that didn't make sense. I'm sorry. So, few different ways that you can do this, and this is not a prescriptive list. Feel free to get creative. If there's something that you think, maybe you're a photographer and you would love to do a photo voice project or something. It's only 6 weeks, but it's kind of the beauty of these short campaigns where we, you know, lean into our strengths and use that to help get the word out and communicate the work that we're doing. So one way, this is the easiest lift, is ask your elected state and local leaders to sign on to the letter. We'll have a toolkit depending on responses to our next steps. But we're going to have all these links ready for you. So there is a letter very easily. You can call your city councilor or maybe a select board member, your state senator or representative, and ask them to sign on. And that's a really powerful way to let your state and local delegation know how you feel, but also signal to the federal delegation how this is funneling up. A tactic we often use is tabling in existing community events. It could be a farm stand. It could be there's a lot of celebrations happening throughout July for various reasons. And if you know of one and are interested in maybe tabling, we can get a partner for you, or we can partner with you. I just tabled at a great event in Salem that was focused on sustainable living. And as I was asking people to fill out the postcards, which we have several, and we'll be happy to get to, I was asking people to fill out the postcards to their federal representative, their congressman, Seth Moulton, and somebody said, "Why don't we just walk it across the street?" And I was like, why don't we? So nearly everybody, because it was a local community event, nearly everybody was from that community, and a lot of people were just walking it over to Seth Moulton's district office, which happened to be across the street. We have great postcards. They're really cool. One features Nantucket Island, and one features Lynn and some of the consequences that we're seeing as part of climate change that's been caused by humans and fossil fuel companies. Writing a letter to the editor. maybe that's a strength of yours and you want to get it in your local paper and you want to get this get awareness about this out to your local community or even some of the larger papers. There's a great letter to the editor writing tool that helps start. It's kind of like an idea starter, but you can also collaborate with somebody else in this room here with you, and do a joint one and get those out to your local newspapers. Social, digital contributions, art, photography, blogging, um, writing a press release, because we mentioned that letter delivery. But how do we get that out into the world? Maybe writing a press release or contacting news organizations to let them know that we are coordinating this letter delivery. Recruiting for this letter delivery and coordinating some of the logistics. So it can be any number of things. And of course, your ideas are welcome and a huge part of this. So, what type of support will you have? So you are Sierra. Sierra Club is a grassroots organization. It is nothing without the people that volunteer, that give their time and resources, and it's an incredible thing to be a part of. But our staff members are here to support you, and to help provide resources. So say you wanted to host a phone or text bank to get the word out and invite people to a district letter drop or to ask them to call their congressional delegation. We can help set that up for you. We can help. We have space in Boston proper, but we can also help. Sometimes we're able to find library spaces or one of our volunteers have space to offer where we can have a postcarding party. Or if you want to host one, maybe you've got a great backyard, you want to show off your garden and have a postcarding party. We've got the list to invite. Um, Folks in your community. And it's a great way to build community with folks that care as much about this as you do. And then, of course, support for your ideas. We are here to help make what you want to happen happen. Um, as we truly are more powerful together. And I know there's a lot of money, there's a lot of uh, power, but we are just as powerful when we work together.